Welcome back to The Breeze. And just to prove that you're really here, this isn't the magic of television. We're back in the studio and glad of it. Good to see you guys.
No zooming.
Likewise.
No zooming. Today, you'll recall on our last Zoom meeting, we talked a little bit about finding your path to happiness in retirement, and we talked a little bit about communications and how you can make decisions based on the way and the method of communication or make judgments. And I want to talk a little bit today about, how you influence people and, and then segue into a real topic of the day. But Margie, do you want to be an influencer?
Absolutely. I think it's not even a matter of wanting to. I think whatever situation we're in, we can be one, either good or bad.
Okay, and I hate the word influencer, by the way, because it has negative connotations to me. But Tina, you're an influencer, aren't you?
Well, it's a part of the social media coined word, influencer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have 10,000, 20,000, a million followers, but I do have respect of people that are in my circle.
Okay.
And I believe that what I have to say or my actions, which speak very loud, influence people.
Well, I can go with that. I think I have an impact on people. If that's influencing, fine. But every kind of interaction you have is going to have some kind of influence, I think. But what bothers me is that when you get a celebrity or a wannabe celebrity on social media or otherwise, uneducated, untrained, running their mouth, and people are influenced by that. They call these people influencers. Mm-hmm. And it's all part of what I call a dumbing down of America. Mm-hmm. And Margie, what's a dumbing down? When was that first used?
Oh, well, I thought it was going to be just in the past few years here with social media and all, but actually, I'm going to read this so I don't dumb myself down and try to remember it. Dumbing down is the deliberate oversimplification of intellectual contact in education, literature, the cinema, news, video games, and culture. Mm-hmm. Originated in 1933. The term dumbing down was a secret code among movie business slang used by screenplay writers, meaning to revise so as to appeal to those of little education or intelligence. Dumbing down varies according to subject matter and usually involves the diminishment of critical thought by determining standard language and learning standards, thus trivializing academic standards, culture, and meaningful information, as in the case of pop culture. So it's been with us.
That's a lot.
It's been with us, and there's a lot there. And I think dumbing down for me can be, that's right, simplified and dumbed down a little bit. Back in the days when I was practicing law, when they told us we didn't have to wear suits anymore, we didn't have to act professional, in other words. Let's just be like everybody else. Let's not hold ourselves to any standard. I mean, no standards of excellence, no standards of professionalism. You've seen all the ads of the ambulance chasers here. That was another dumbing down, in my view, of the profession. Mm-hmm. In your experience, Tina, what have you seen that sort of eats at you a little bit or creates some consternation?
That's a big word.
Well, I don't want to be dumb.
Well, when Margie was talking about, dumbing down, the first thing I thought about was a cult. I think it allows a person to be more predisposed to whatever they hear, and that becomes their gospel, therefore a possible cult. That scares me, first of all. I'm the type of person that I'll get information, but I'll do a little research before I take it to heart. Mm-hmm. I don't think that the average person may filter it that way, but I think it's important before you make an impact or a very serious decision based on something you've heard that you owe it to yourself to do that. Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of studies that say that there are two ways of making decisions or judgments, and we're all in possession of the same faculties. And one is your quick response, your quick thinking mechanism, which is an emotional response oftentimes, or that sounds right, I'm going to spread that without even thinking about it. And maybe based on the celebrity you're watching or whatever. But to me, that is irresponsible. And the other method, of course, is your second way of thinking, which is critical thinking, a more thorough analysis and investigation, pros and cons, however you want to look at it. And I think that, unfortunately, most people that make that quick decision are too lazy to get part two. And that is a dumbing down mechanism in itself, and it creates a lack of expectations and a negation of personal responsibility, in my view.
Now, you made an assumption there that
Of course.
that bothers me a little bit, in that some people are not aware that that's what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there needs to be the awareness before they can make the critical thinking idea. Make sense?
Sure.
You know, education, again, I always get back to that. An educated person is equipped with things that they can use to do exactly what you just said. And education is the key. If you don't have the education, whether it's learned or, educated in a college or what have you, then you don't have the equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where the influencing comes in, because part of the influencing for me is you got to earn my respect, whether you were a celebrity of, whether it's football, basketball, TV, what have you. If I don't have respect for you, or if the things that I have heard makes you suspect to me, then I'm going to filter it a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. And Margie, I know you have some thoughts, particularly in the education area, about, this way of making decisions and judgments.
Well, it's because we're dumbing down the students, and textbooks now for younger children, the whole curriculum for younger children does not really, the common core, I think they called it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's determined by people who probably aren't even educators or psychologists, or somebody that can say at this age, this is what these kids should know by then, this is what, because if we use it dumbing down, keep them at their lowest level, to me it seems that we would have two standards in schools then. We would have the lower level, we would have the real achievers that are probably going to bounce against this regardless, and we're going to have, valedictorians and all that. But it's like, where do people get picked out of this frame and advanced? It's almost like, okay, you're in this class because you're a dumb kid, We remember that from high school. There were kids who were not too bright.
The short bus.
The short bus?
Never heard that.
You never heard of the short bus?
No.
Oh, that's another story.
Okay. We'll save that one, all right?
So if the attitude of the country is keep it simple and don't worry about their progressing, just pass them on.
Well, said another way, we are not demanding or having any expectations of kids or anyone else, really. And what that leads to is that the greatest influencers of all have to be your parents. And if they're not demanding or saying, I have expectations for you, little kid, then they're going to take the easy route. Parents take the easy route, so do the kids.
Yeah.
And that's the role model they have. Is it's easier not to have the grief and the stress of achievement.
Yeah.
The challenge. I mean,
The challenge, yeah.
People don't want to deal with challenge. I mean, whether it's a parental thing or if it's a friendship thing. I mean, some people don't want to step up to the challenge. I feel personally, if you're a valued person to me, whether it be a child or a friend, then I'm going to think about it, and I might step up and meet the challenge and ask the questions and be prepared for the pushback.
Well, I worry about the young kids not being challenged, because there could be a whole lot more in them than what the test scores say, or if they're shy, or if they're having home problems, you know, and they're and they're not
Or they're
participating,
hungry.
or they're hungry.
Oh my God.
And so there's so many factors to it, and it's almost like we become, okay, well, that's just the way it is.
Well, and another factor that comes in is that whoever is influencing, but rather whether it be educators or parents or whomever, is the failure to let someone fail. Everybody gets a trophy, and therefore you never learn from mistakes.
Yeah.
You repeat the
Good point.
mistakes.
Yeah.
They have no expectations of this kid or this person, and that's just dead wrong.
It is, and
Because
you
we've
know,
all fallen flat on our face
Oh, yeah.
Really?
in embarrassing ways.
Really?
Yeah, all of us, Tina.
Well, and for little kids to always be a winner, it doesn't mean as much. And then the expectation is they're going to be winning, so why do I have to put so much into it? You know, they're going to win anyway.
And they get out in the real world and they have a different lesson.
Yeah, and sometimes it's because the parents want to win, and they do that through their child. Oh my gosh, your child is great, you know?
Yeah, that's a problem. It's also a problem that you've got situations where electronics are more of a babysitter than a boon,
Yeah. I'll read
which
something
makes them a
else.
bane.
Perhaps what might be seen as dumbing down is actually a generational divide. I think that's kind of what we're talking about.
Right.
The elevation of pop culture in television, movies, or YouTube means it is equivalent in value as high culture as fine arts and literary works. It's not far off to say that younger people are more likely to get their news from Snapchat than the New York Times.
Right.
And they're likely not to be watching news shows, even to develop some critical thinking.
Well, critical thinking to me has not been taught at any level of education for quite some time. It's indoctrination or rote teaching or teaching to the standardized tests because, once again, it's the easy way.
Yeah.
You don't have to deal with varying levels of competence. And once again, it's a dumbing down or a lack of standards, which leads to a lack of personal responsibility, a lack of accountability. Well, I mean, this is all very heavy stuff, I guess, but
Deep.
we actually went out on the streets of Sun City and talked to some residents to try to get their take on what they think dumbing down of America means, and also how they influence people, or do they consider themselves as having any influence on people? Well, today our Breeze team is at Town Square, and we're going to talk to some residents of Sun City about what we perceive as the dumbing down of America. Let's get some answers.
Do you consider yourself an influencer? And if so, how?
Yes, I do. I'm always talking to the neighbors about different things regarding the flowers, what to put in their yard.
Many say there is a dumbing down of America. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I'll tell you, the older you get, the dumber it needs to be so you can understand it. But anyway, yeah, there's a bit of a dumbing down. I think there is. I recently saw a picture of two young people looking at a telephone booth on the side of the street, and they looked at each other and said, "This is ancient America." So it got really dumb right there.
Do you consider yourself an influencer? And if so, how?
Well, I hope I am, and I hope I'm a good influence, and from a large family, and I try to be very careful around nieces and nephews that I give them good example.
There's so much out in the media and social media these days. And do you feel that we as a country are dumbing down and just accepting what we hear?
In large part, yes, but because I think people are getting their news in sound bites, and they're not studying extensively history. I mean, it's pretty clear that things have happened in history that could repeat, and for people to think that they won't, it's ignorance. So I do think there's a bit of dumbing down, but we have to have good leaders all around to make sure that people are educated. But how are they going to get that? Now it's a vicious cycle.
Social media has a word called influencer. Do you consider yourself an influencer, and if so, how?
No, I don't, because I'm pretty much of a single individual. I spent most of my life being single, and I don't have social. Matter of fact, the flip phone, I still have one of these things.
Social media has termed influencer as something that we need to be aware of. Do you consider yourself an influencer, and if so, how?
Yeah, I think I do influence the people around me, my friends, my neighbors. I mean, I have strong opinions and they're aware of it, and I have no problem sharing those with people. And I think through my involvement with the Sun City Community Theater, I've been able to influence people by some of the roles I've taken on, and people have come and seen different opinions that maybe they would have not considered in the past. So yeah, and I kind of dress a little funky, and I think people sometimes like to follow that. It gives them permission to be a little out there as well. So yeah, I think I make an influence on other people.
Well, they had some interesting things to say,
Yeah.
for sure.
Wow.
And, but what is this sort of lack of accountability, everybody's a winner, lack of personal responsibility end up? Where does that end? And how do you reverse that?
Well, I was reading an article, I'm the wine whisperer, and I was reading an article about restaurants and the rude customer and how you can get around a problem like that. And they had 4 steps, and one of the steps was keeping your cool, trying to diffuse the situation. And all that is a part of accountability. And in this one scenario, the manager asked the customer to leave. And some of the other customers turned around and applauded what they did. Because the downside, if they had allowed that person to stay, that server who was basically verbally assaulted would feel less than a person. Mm-hmm. And it was assuming that that person, the customer, was not being accountable for their actions. But by asking them to leave, and the way they did it was, not being, very forceful, but saying, I think it's best that you leave, was an example of being accountable, not only to the staff, but respecting the other customers and then creating a better work environment.
So insisting on some standards.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
And it was a risky
A risk.
decision.
But then, because he got accolades on his reviews, because he took that step to diffuse the situation and handle it properly.
That's a good lesson for everybody.
Yeah,
It's so easy to shy away from it or say, I'm not going to get involved in this.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, lack of personal responsibility, lack of standards. That leads to a sort of a lack of a buy-in or national will, a lack of purpose, to me. And how do you do that? I'm not going to go out and run for office and preach like I'm better than anybody else, and here's the way it is. Although,
That's why we made you producer.
that's right. But we certainly are producing the most coddled generation in history, totally unprepared for adulthood.
Yeah.
And we have used electronics as a babysitter.
Yeah. Oh.
We have foregone personal responsibility of raising a responsible adult.
Yes, agree.
And, those are opinions, obviously, but they're mine, and I'll stick by them. But what can you do one-on-one?
Well, you start the conversation. When you see something that concerns you, then you take that and run with it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be prepared to do it. And I think one-on-one is how I tackle things. I did something that was different for me. I want to get out and see family, and I have family, my in-laws in Virginia. So I sent a text. I know you don't like text, but I sent a text.
I text.
to 4 of them saying, look, Southwest is down here now. I can get up to D.C., and how about celebrating your brother's birthday in August? So I got 1 call, 1 response, and I got 1 other response. So we'll see, and I might do it. But again, I think taking that step was being an influencer, because my mother-in-law, who's deceased now, used to be that catalyst for the family. And then we tried to do it when we were there. And then I had one sister-in-law who said, well, she's got a business and she may not be, around, da 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 da. So I wrote her back and I said, so you mean to tell me if I came up there, you couldn't find 2 hours to see me? And people were saying, my bestie was saying, you did that? I said, yeah. Why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? How about you, Margie? How would you change the world?
Hey. Well,
I know you spent your whole
She'd have
career
to-
trying to change
I
the
know,
world.
Research
I
first.
know. And I think, too, that when we see positive things happening, we need to reinforce them. Mm-hmm. And I think I've, on this program earlier, told how a friend and I were almost shocked to see a family next to us eating around a table, and there were no cell phones on the table. Mm-hmm. And that we purposefully commended them for it. Mm-hmm. And we probably got the attention of a couple other tables, but it reinforced to them, you're doing the right thing. Because it's a lot easier to reward than it is to annoy, by pointing something out,
Or challenge somebody,
especially
yeah.
when it's not our business.
Oh, I'll disagree with that.
All
I
right.
think it's pretty damn easy to point out something annoying.
Give us an example.
Okay. How about the people that go to the restaurant on the other end of the spectrum and all 2 kids and 2 parents are on their electronics the whole meal?
Oh, yeah.
You go over and say, well, that's nice, you idiots.
Oh, have you done that, Doug?
No.
Okay. But I mean,
I
that's,
just sit and bitch and moan. I don't do anything.
but that's certainly a tactless thing, but it may have power, or others may applaud you in the restaurant.
They would have, I think.
Or they might say, hey,
But
Leave.
there are people our age. I see people our age across the table from each other or a booth, and they're not talking. And it's like going out to eat is kind of the measure of togetherness. And I think how sad. That's kind of on a different topic, but they really,
Well, it is, but it's also, in the situation I'm talking about, you got 2 parents on their electronics
Oh,
at
yeah.
dinner. That's the biggest influence of all.
Oh, it
What do you
is.
expect the kids to do?
it is.
right.
It is.
But the kids aren't screaming and yelling and demanding and throwing tantrums.
Yeah, exactly.
They're babysat.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't know if it's a lack of energy or a lack of interest on an influencer's part.
Yeah. Well, remember, parents of young children are part of that. Where's my phone? Where's my iPad? Where's my,
Yeah.
That connection, yeah.
That's when kind of it started. It didn't start with us. It more of it took us a while to learn, but
some of you are still learning.
yeah, but it kind of makes you wonder what's going to happen in the next generation. And Ralph Waldo Emerson said something: the mind of this country, taught to aim at low objects, eats itself. So it's like it's a self-destruction.
Yeah, if you go for the low-hanging fruit,
Well, yeah,
is another way of
exactly.
saying that. And you can't do that all the time, or else you lose incentive, you lose the thrill of victory and the learning from a noble failure.
Yes.
Because in my view, the only failure is the failure to try.
So that means that we
Profound.
all need to take responsibility and be accountable and maybe react differently, react critically, and learn.
And someone else said the result in so much of dumbing down is exhaustion, and then we become numbing down.
Numbing down, okay.
Numbing down America, because eventually, we're kind of saying, if there's no intervention, if there's no change of style, then
You get the same result.
yeah, kind of sit
And
back and hope for the
It's
best.
kind of a downward spiral that feeds on itself. And that's the interesting part, is if we don't stop it one-on-one or as a group, then the consequences are more dire than you would think, in my view.
Yeah.
But, we can talk about this a lot more, and maybe we will. And I hope we get some feedback from you viewers. Sum up? Anything? No more quotes?
It's just
Where do you get that stuff? The internet? Must be true.
no. I make them up and then I plagiarize Ralph Waldo Emerson.
I was going to say, if it's on the internet, it's true, right?
It's true. Yeah.
Okay, I got that.
I think, that my summation would be, recognize that you are influencing others and be accountable for what you're doing.
I would say, welcome back, girls. This is a lot more fun when we're face to face.
I guess.
And I hope I hope that you all enjoyed it, and we look forward to again shooting the breeze next month. Join us.